But James Cook also had a good game, really good game. 22 carries, 117 yards, averaged 5.3 yards a carry, and he did have one touchdown. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and in this episode, we are looking at the New Orleans Saints at the Buffalo Bills. So what I'm doing, I've changed the format. Instead of doing 8 podcasts or 8 games in one podcast, I'm trying to do a podcast for each game. And I'm working on that. This is my third one. I'm going to try to make it more succinct, get it down to closer to 10 minutes, I guess. I've been more around 17, so we'll try to get it down. I'll stop talking about that, but I'm just letting you know as you listen, whoever might be listening, until I perfect this, it'll be kind of a work in progress. But we'll still cover the same information. It's just going to be one game at a time. All right, so like I said, this game will be the New Orleans Saints at the Buffalo Bills. This was a much closer game than I'm sure anybody expected. The score wouldn't suggest how close it was, but it was a close game. Let me get to the right game here. The Bills ended up winning this game 31-19 over the Saints. The score is a bit deceiving. It wasn't until the halfway through the fourth quarter that the Bills finally put some distance between themselves and the Saints in this game. The Saints now lead this series 7-6. We'll get to that in a second. Looking at top 10 in this game, James Cook for the Bills in rushing touchdowns had 1 touchdown. He had 24 going to the game. He'd been trying to make the top 10. And he did it with this touchdown. It actually put him in a tie for 9th. There's 3 people in it now. LaShawn McCoy, Jack Kemp, quarterback from the 60s for the Commanders. Actually, at that time, it was the Redskins. And then James Cook all have 25 touchdowns. So next up for James Cook is Antoine Smith, who played from 97 to 2000 for the Commanders. He's in 8th right now. So that's James Cook next target. And he has been getting a touchdown pretty much every game. So it's very possible next week he catches or passes Smith. Now, Josh Allen also had a rushing touchdown to extend his lead as the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns by a Buffalo Bill with 68 now. He has 68. Now, looking at the Saints, Cameron Jordan had been tied with Ricky Jackson for a couple of weeks with 123 sacks apiece. Cameron Jordan had a sack in this game, got to Josh Allen in this game, sacked him. He now has 124. He's now the all-time leader in Saints history in sacks with 124. Ricky Jackson has 123. Ricky Jackson played in the 80s and early 90s. Now, looking at Alvin Kamara, who continues to move up the list of all-time players in the NFL, that is, in receptions. He had 4. He went into the game and tied for 6th with 582 receptions by a running back, which was good enough to be 6th all-time for running backs receiving the ball. He had 4 receptions, though it was only for 2 yards. It didn't pan out very well as far as effectiveness, but as far as moving up this list, he is now tied for 5th with Tiki Barber, who played in the late 70s and the 2000 up to 2006. He has 586. So next up is the great Raider. I consider him a Raider versus the other team he played with, but Marcus Allen has 587. So Alvin Kamara will probably pass Marcus Allen next week for 4th place all time. The leader right now is Larry Centers, played from 1990 to 2003. He was more of a fullback. He had 827 receptions, so he's got a pretty big lead on Alvin Kamara at this point in time. Those are your top 10 numbers. Let's look at the game itself. So like I said, the Bills, it looked like they went right down the field, scored, But by the end of the first quarter, it's 14-7. Bills were not able to get another touchdown until the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter. And by that time, the game was 20 by New Orleans Saints had actually pulled into the lead, and the Bills came back and they were winning 21-19. And it stayed that way until halfway through the fourth quarter when the Bills finally got another touchdown on a pass from Josh Allen to Dalton Kincaid for a touchdown. But the Saints were moving again, went 4 and out. They could not get a first down, which was all Josh Allen needed. Pulled out in the lead. They added a field goal toward almost at the end of the game with about a couple minutes to go to make it look bigger score than it really was. It was a closer game than the score would tell you. It was 31-19 in the score. Now, looking at the team stats in this game, total net yards, the Bills had 356. The Saints had 298. So it was a pretty even game, honestly. Penalties, this is what hurt Buffalo. Not for a lot of yards. It was only for 55, but they had 11 penalties in this game, which wasn't helpful for them. The same goes with third downs. Neither team was very effective in third downs. The Bills were 3 out of 10 on third down, while the Saints were 5 out of 13 for 38%. And like I said, they went for it on fourth down twice and did not make it either time. All right, let's look at these quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler didn't have a bad game. He definitely puts out some effort, but it wasn't for many yards. 18 completions, 27 attempts for only 126 yards. Only 4.7 yards an attempt. That's pathetic, really. It's not very good. He did have one touchdown pass in this game. He was sacked 3 times. He had a quarterback rating of 89.4. Now, Josh Allen also didn't throw many passes, but he was more effective with them. He threw 2 fewer passes. He threw 16 completions on 22 attempts. So 5 less attempts, 2 less completions. But he threw for 209 yards, so quite a bit more yardage on so few completions. He had 9.5 yards per attempt, which is double what Spencer Rattler had. 2 touchdowns for Josh Allen. He did throw an interception in this game, and he was also sacked 3 times. His quarterback rating was 113.6, so pretty good, actually. Now, when we look at this game real quick, I'll try to do this faster this time. I like to look at the quarterbacks a little bit, but I won't spend too much time. Neither quarterback threw the ball down the field that far. The longest pass for Josh Allen was 36 yards. Spencer Rattler was 32. But in this game, like I said, actually, Spencer Rattler, he didn't throw it. According to the chart here, he didn't have any pass over 20 yards. Didn't even attempt one. Josh Allen tried 4 times, had 1 completion for 20 yards. He threw an interception on a longer pass. It was really a bad pass, throwing in double coverage, and it was intercepted. But overall, Josh Allen was pretty effective in the middle of the field, and he does spread the ball around, unlike we were looking at Rodgers in that game. All right, let's move away from that, and we'll look at the running backs in this game. Alvin Kamara had a much better game than last week. 15 carries, 70 yards, 4.67 yards a carry, no touchdowns. Kendre Miller had a good game as well. They ran the ball fairly well against the Bills. 11 carries, 65 yards, 5.9 yards a carry, and he did have an 18-yard touchdown run. And then Spencer Rattler ran as well, pretty effectively. 6 carries, 49 yards, averaged over 8 yards on his carries. They ended up running the ball 34 times for 189 yards, over 5.5 yards a carry. Pretty good game for them, really. But James Cook also had a good game, really good game. 22 carries, 117 yards, averaged 5.3 yards a carry, and he did have 1 touchdown. Josh Allen, 7 carries, 45 yards, averaged 6.4 yards a carry, and a touchdown as well. They dominated. If you had Davis or Johnson, anybody else, they had 1 carry. They had 32 carries for 165 yards and averaged 5.16. So both teams rushed the ball quite well. Looking at the receivers, Alvin Kamara and Rashid Shaheed had 4 catches each. They were targeted the most. Well, Chris Olave was targeted the most. It was a rough game for Olave. Fortunately, he did have a touchdown to save his game. But Kamara had 4 catches, but like I said, only 2 yards, targeted 5 times. Shaheed had 4 catches for 47 yards on 5 targets. And then Brandon Cooks, 3 catches, 22 yards. Jawan Johnson, the tight end, this was his worst game this season so far. He had been dominating in receptions, targets, everything, but he only had 3 catches on 3 targets for 28 yards. So the Bills shut him down pretty good. Olave, only 3 catches for 20 yards. It's terrible for a wide receiver. Did have 1 touchdown, though, so that kind of saved his numbers a little bit, throwing in a touchdown there. But like I said, Rattler could not get the ball down the field at all. It was really a rough game as far as that goes. They shut him down. He ran around a lot. Like I said, had a rushing yards, but just did not throw the ball down the field. Now, looking at the receivers for the Bills, again, this I mentioned this, and I always will probably, but it's hard to pick a receiver for the Bills. You just don't know who's going to get the balls. This week, it was Khalil Shakir, had 5 catches for 69 yards on 5 targets. Targeted the most, had the most reception, and had one of the touchdown passes. So it was a long one too, 43 yards. Actually, it was a short, quick pass to him, and he was able to skirt along the sideline, ran it in for a touchdown. Bad tackling on the Saints. It appeared they had him, with a short gain, and he got away and ran it in for a touchdown. So a good play for him. Now, Keon Coleman still did average. That's it. 3 catches, 45 yards on 4 targets. Cook, coming out of the backfield, had 3 catches for 18 yards. So good game for him when you throw in the fact that he had 22 carries and another 3 touches, 25 touches for James Cook. And then Josh Palmer, 2 catches, 25 yards. If you had Kincaid, who'd been playing quite well, you were saved by the fact he only had 1 catch late in the game, was for 28 yards and a touchdown. So that saved him to get you at least some points from him. But otherwise, not too good. And the other tight end, Dawson Knox, was almost a no-show. He was targeted once, but no catches. Looking at the defenses for the Saints, Quincy McKinstry, 7 solo tackles in this game. Granderson did have a sack in this game of Allen, had 5 solo tackles in this game. He was burned on a play in the game, though. So good that he had the sack, but he did get burned. Then Cameron Jordan, like I said, had 4 solo tackles, but he did have a sack to put him in the all-time lead for the Saints as far as sacks go. They were only able to get to Allen 3 times in this game. Obviously, he's always hard to get to anyway. Brian Breezy had the other sack. Now, looking for the Buffalo Bills, no one really stood out too much. Trey Davius White had 7 total tackles in this game, and they were all solo tackles. Joey Bosa did show up a little bit, had a sack, 3 tackles in this game. Only 1 solo, but he did have a sack, so that was big. And a couple other players had sacks as well. They got to the quarterback 3 times. No one really stood out completely dominating in this game. But overall, the defense played all right. Not against the run, though. That's where they kind of let it down. So in this game, like I said, Buffalo Bills win it 31-19. The Bills are now 4-0. New Orleans Saints are 0-4. Though they put up a good effort, it still was another loss. All right, that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats. I'll be on my way to the next game. Until next time, I'm out. So that was not quite a wrap on that episode. We wanted to let you know that You can catch this podcast on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL, also on any of your podcast outlets, Spotify, Apple, any app you may have that does podcasts. You can also get a hold of me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com. So that is now a wrap for this episode.